Next, we have Mr. Jim Hopf joining us from sunny California, San Jose, I believe. Jim and I have collaborated several times on various climate related activities. He's been a long-term volunteer of Citizens Climate Lobby. He's helped me do lobby trainings for college students looking to make a difference in their state, make sure they're keeping their reactors around and encouraging research and development and innovation of the next generation. So it can really, not just slow climate change, but imagine a future where reactors are coming off of the factory lines and we're rapidly decarbonizing, even reversing at some point. And that's what we try to empower people to do through these trainings. And Jim, through his experience at Citizens Climate Lobby, has been able to help us do that. So Jim has a few things to say, some lessons learned from California. And I didn't even mention, he's also a nuclear engineer, retired nuclear engineer. So thanks for joining us, Jim. Yeah, I just want to make sure you're unmuted. I'll unmute you. There you go. You're unmuted. Go ahead.
Okay, now can you see and hear me? Yeah,
we can.
Great. As Eric mentioned, I'm a retired nuclear engineer. I'm very concerned about both climate change and air pollution. In fact, I actually retired early just so I could work on such environmental issues. As Eric mentioned, I'm a member of the Citizens Climate Lobby. Who they are is an environmental group that's solely focused on climate change, and they specifically support technology neutral policies that give equal aid to all non-emitting sources. In other words, they would treat, for instance, nuclear and renewables the same. The general idea here is that if we're really serious about climate change and giving the magnitude of the problem, we really need to use all the tools that we have at our disposal. And frankly, we really need to let those tools or means of emission reduction compete on a fair, level playing field so that we achieve the most emissions reduction at the minimum cost. And if we had a policy, say like a carbon price, you wouldn't see nuclear plants like Indian Point closing. The thing that concerns me most of all is I have this large fear that we're going to end up treading water on global warming if we let a large number of nuclear plants close. A lot of people are saying that, if we don't do anything to try to stop this, we have nuclear competing, directly with fossil generators that get to pollute for free. We may see a significant number of nuclear plants closed. And if that happens, the nuclear plant closures will actually neutralize all the climate impacts of all the solar and wind, that we're trying to build. So we'll end up spending a huge amount of time, money, and effort to merely tread water on global warming, because what we're doing is we're replacing one non-emitting source with another. And I'd like to give two key examples of that. California and Germany, they're both hailed as climate leaders. But frankly, what we're seeing is they're not making a lot of progress for this very reason. I have a slide showing power trends in California. I hope everyone can see it. What this plot shows is the fraction of California's in-state power generation coming from each source from the year 2003, when California first put in place its renewables mandate policy, all the way till 2018, which is the latest year for which we have data. If you take away anything from this plot, it's the brown line that's up top. And what that is the fraction of California's power that comes from fossil fuels. And, just at a very quick glance, you can see that, frankly, it's not going down very much. And the reason for that is that it's exactly what I'm talking about. California is, in large part, replacing nuclear with renewables instead of replacing fossil fuels with renewables. If you focus on the year 2011, that's when San Onofre shut down. San Onofre and Diablo Canyon, they provided about 18% of California's total power generation. And if you look on the far right, the green line is solar and wind. And the point is that nuclear, those two plants provided almost as much electricity as all the solar and wind that California has built to date. And if or when we shut those two plants down, one of them is shut already, it's going to neutralize all the climate benefits of all the solar and wind that, California has made so much effort to build and spent so much money to build. In 2011, as you can see, if you look at the yellow line, that's nuclear. It dropped in half, from 18% to 9% in 2011. You may see the fossil fuels jumped that year, and that's a big part of the reason why. Now, in 2018, again, we haven't made a lot of progress reducing fossil fuel use. As California continues to build solar and wind in the coming years, it's true that it'll go down somewhat, but guess what happens in 2024, 2025? Diablo Canyon is scheduled to close. We'll lose another 99%. And that fossil fuel line will go right back up. All that progress in the coming years with solar and wind will once again be wiped out, and we'll go back to near 50%. So again, the punchline, when you replace nuclear with renewables and leave fossil fuel intact, you're really not doing much for global warming. The case of Germany, I'm just going to talk about it verbally. They did the same sort of thing. Germany spent $600 billion on solar and wind, but at the same time, they had a policy of closing all of their nuclear plants. So most of that renewable energy went to replacing nuclear. And meanwhile, Germany has kept its coal generation online. So the result has been that they haven't reduced CO2 that much. And when you compare them to France, Germany's power rates are literally twice as high as France, just about, in large part because they spent that $600 billion on renewables. But not only have they not reduced their power sector CO2 emissions that much, but compared to France, their power sector CO2 emissions are actually 10 times what France's are. France, of course, being reliant on nuclear the whole time. So, my main message would be it shouldn't even be controversial that renewable energy should be used to replace fossil fuels as opposed to replacing also non-emitting nuclear. If you use it to replace nuclear, you're going to spend a whole lot of time, money, and effort treading water on the global warming problem, as well as, not reducing air pollution that much. Others earlier have said that, when they shut Indian Point down, pollution is actually going to increase. I should mention that in the two examples I gave, that was just a case of replacing nuclear with renewables. Environmentalists say, well, don't worry, we'll replace nuclear with renewables. But my point is, well, that's still not okay. Renewables should be used to replace fossil fuels. But I just want to point out, in the Indian Point situation, as has been the case for all the nuclear plants that have closed thus far, they're not even being replaced with renewables. They're being replaced almost entirely with fossil fuels. Indian Point is going to be replaced almost entirely with natural gas. So New York is actually going to move backwards with respect to climate change. And it's probably going to take a decade or more merely to get back to where they were. And also, we're going to see increased air pollution in many neighborhoods, because they're going to fire up these fossil plants to replace Indian Point. And as some may have said, as we're learning, not only is air pollution a health problem in general, but we're seeing new research saying that air pollution, fine particulates, not only are increasing how deadly the COVID virus is, but they may actually be enhancing the transmission of the virus. So this is an example of the sort of thing that's going to happen environmentally when they close Indian Point.
Thank you so much, Jim. I appreciate that, and I appreciate all the work you've been doing for Diablo Canyon, for Indian Point, and just spreading the message. It's been great working with you.